Hello everyone and welcome to 4KB Shorts Let's Learn with Kerbal Space Program version 1.0. Now this is going to be a little bit different than most of my Let's Learns because even with updates, because there's a lot to cover. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go cut, and we're just going to cut from place to place to place. And I'm going to try to cover everything that I have noticed as a change in order so that you guys will know what it is you're looking for. So let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to start out as we always do on the settings menu. At least always do when something has changed. So we have displaying Earth time, displaying Kerbal time, same as before. We have our graphics, we have our input, and we have our audio, always as before. However, there's a new little thing here in the area where we have flight, vessel, Kerbals, miscellaneous, and other, but go ahead and click on a key. Let's go ahead and say EVA pack forward. We get a new pop-up where it'll actually ask you if you'd like to change your button. Not super important, but I like to add those types of things in there. And you can change your button when you press whatever key it is you want. It'll say your current assignment, and it'll change, and you can accept, clear, whatever. And that's about the biggest change here. They may have reorganized. I think they may have reorganized where a couple of things go. I think that rovers, yes, I believe rovers are now down here, rather than their own section over here. I think it used to be under miscellaneous. I actually don't recall off the top of my head. I've changed these buttons every time they've updated, and I don't even remember where it was, but it's now under vessel specific, so they're right down here. Other than that, everything here has stayed roughly the same. Not really much in the graphics area, updates, things like that. Everything here. Although, if you notice, terrain scatter, no longer work in progress. It's now official. Terrain scatter is official. Look at that. Alright. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out so I don't change anything. And then we're going to say start game. And the reason why I'm actually going to start game is, look, it's Valentina. Valentina, she gets her own little space in orbit right there. So now Valentina graces us with her grand presence right here in orbit. You can see her right off the bat. You don't even have to go in there and look for her. You don't have to, oh, what do female Kerbals look like? Nope, they're right there. Valentina chilling out in space with everybody else off to the side because she's special like that. Now we're going to resume a saved game. And as you guys can see, I've cheated my way to the top. I have $54 million. 88,000 science and 30% reputation, because who needs rep when you're doing science? But now you have more information here, so it tells you how many funds, how much science, how much rep, as well as how long you've been going, how many flights, and how many current contracts you hold. And then of course you have the sandbox mode, which we will use for things like parts and some other features that have come out that you guys are aware of, resources, scanning, things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and see you guys inside, and the first thing we're going to take a look at, I think, is the resources, because that's going to be one of the biggest changes that everyone's going to be super stoked about. So let's go ahead and get in there, and I'll see you guys out there doing some resource stuff. Alright, here we are in the spaceplane hangar, because where else would you build a resource gatherer than here? So we're going to start with our first part, the ISRU converter. I'm not going to go ahead and read the description, you guys can read that. But this is basically your generator, your converter, the thing that converts rock to go juice, and I think I put it in upside down. Not that it matters. Yeah, I think it looks like that. So that's what that looks like, and of course it has no features on it at all. There are some other parts in here we will get to. I know you guys see some of those and you're like, oh, cover that there. I will. Now we have large holding tanks. We have several sizes of holding tanks. They look like rubber tires stacked together. Small holding tank. This is a very teeny tiny holding tank. There's only the one size generator though, so if you want an inline stacker, you're going to want to go with the large holding tank. So you put the two tires that are stacked on top of each other on top of the generator, and this thing holds ore, 1,500 units of ore. And then what the ore does is the ore gets converted to fuel. And of course for fuel you'd have to do, now anybody who's done any kind of kethane mining in the past will know the way this works. You take a tank, you stick it on, near, or above the driller, and then you empty it. You must have empty tanks in order for it to work. Boom, boom. Empty tanks. If you don't have an empty tank, you're going to have a bad time, because you're going to try to fill up a full tank with fuel, and it's not going to work. Now, along with that, we have a very special device. Oh, here it is. The Drill-O-Matic Mining Excavator. And I believe I can stack that. Yes, I can stack this here. So this is your drill. This is currently the only drill available. So as you can see, it's rather large. Let's try that again. Rather large, but as you can see, it does its job. Now, I don't believe it animates once it's in the ground. It does animate on the way down, but I think once it's in the ground, it doesn't animate, but it really doesn't need to, because when you're only looking at this part of it, you know, and above, I think it vibrates. We'll take a look at that. I've only used it once. So we're going to go ahead and take that off. And if you guys are wondering, actually, if you guys are wondering how big all this is, I mean, you kind of have this for scale, but here's a little bit better scale if you're going for Kerbals. So this is how big the whole thing is. I mean, you know, this thing's about the size of a Kerbal, so you're not going to be able to like strap one of these to this and be, let's go drilling. And I don't know why I keep zooming in like that. You know, you're not going to be saying that. You're not going to be like taking that somewhere and trying to drill. But so you're thinking large rover, 3-man rover, something like that. And I have put together a demonstration model to show how this works. And I believe for the purposes of drilling and conversion, that's all there is. But when we get outside, I'll take another look because it's been a while since I built the little guy. And so we'll be out there. And here she is, the driller. Actually, that's all I called it, was the driller, because this is the whole of the operation, the drilling part of the operation. It's not very complex, in all honesty. If you guys remember Kethane, it's not very complex. I mean, honestly, just the sheer amount of stuff that you could do with it was pretty complex. But it's not a complex design. And as you can see here, there are no fuel lines between our empty tank and our ore tank, or our converter. Our converter's over here in line by itself. Our fuel tank's over here in line by itself. No connectors. And the reason why I mention that is because, of course, with things like Kethane mods, you did have to have everything in a line and in a specific order, because if you put tank, fuel tank, Kethane tank, and converter, it didn't work. You had to have like Kethane tank, converter, then tank, and that's the only way it would work. This way, it's a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start our drill. To start your drill, you right-click, deploy drill. Now, you're going to see this a lot, overheat level. Heat is an important thing in the game now. Very important thing. If things overheat, they might explode or shut down. It does depend on what they are and how they're working. So, depending on what you're doing, you may have to keep an eye on these, and we'll demonstrate what might happen. So we're going to start our drill. And now it's bumping around, kicking up some dust, bouncing about. It's not so bad, you know, nicely animated. At least you know it's going, right? Alright, now from here, as you can see with our ore tank, we're starting to fill with ore. Now you can jettison your tank contents. I don't know why you'd want to do this. I don't even think you can recover your contents. Yep, you don't even recover your contents. It's just gone. But, I don't know, maybe you have a spaceship, you have a mod, you got a hot date. I don't know. And you gotta go now and you're too heavy. Ore's gone. Just dump it right out of that tank, no problem. And now I don't believe, yes, that has not yet or not at all been added to jettisoning fuel. So you can't just jettison fuel, but it is an option. If ever in the future you wish to add a jettison contents option to a fuel tank, I don't see why you couldn't be able to do so. Now, once you have ore built up, a little bit of ore, you don't need a lot of ore. We'll go ahead and open up our contents here. You can start your conversion. Now, your converter just sits up here doing its thing. You have overheat level, LF ox, monopropellant liquid fuel, and oxidizer. And the reason why for the split up is because if you try to turn on liquid fuel and oxidizer at the same time, it chews up all the ore in about 1/8 of a second and then burns out your converter. It's not good. And you might consider that a bug, except that's probably what would really happen too, because you're trying to pump two different types of fuel through the same piping system. So now we don't have any place to store our monopropellant, so we can only do liquid fuel and oxidizer. But if we take a look and we say we're going to convert our liquid fuel and oxidizer, click that button, and we get a 50% load. And then, as you can see, our numbers are increasing. So we're getting liquid fuel and oxidizer at the expense of ore. And as you can see, the conversion rate is not super great, although it's not terrible either. And when you run out of ore, you can just let the miner run. It will continue to pull up dirt and ore and rock and whatever else Kerbals use to burn in their jets. And then they will convert it to something they like to call liquid fuel and oxidizer. Now, when I was talking about overheat, load level, and bad things happening, you can do things like this. So we're going to shut off our liquid fuel oxidizer. We're going to increase time just a teeny tiny bit so we can get a ton of ore in our little container here, because the demonstration is much better when you have a lot of things to lose. And we'll say 16 or so. Alright, now all we have to do is we say, let's do our liquid fuel. Let's do our oxidizer. Let's do our monopropellant. Monopropellant's full. And then we have that. Powered off, shutting down. We just used up all the power. Oh, it didn't do it this time. Oh, that's odd. And I say that's odd because last time I did that, I burned it out. I mean, literally, I burned it. Okay, that's a physics issue. And we'll cope with that later. That was actually another vessel that was over there. I think I know why it exploded. And I'll explain that later. So, there's an explosion for you. Random explosion there. Not a bug, just, oh yeah, everything's shut down, I don't even know. Let's start our service harvester again. Get some more juice in here. Okay. So I'm not entirely sure why this didn't overheat this time. I wonder. So we say start our liquid fuel oxidizer. 100% load, 100% load. And, that's really strange. Well, what I can let you know, oddly enough, is that I don't know why it's not doing it now. But previously, when I would turn on multiple uh, units for, powering things up, this overheat level would skyrocket up to 98.7%. And the whole thing would shut. There it goes. Yeah. So as you can see, it shoots up to like 100% overheat level. And now the whole thing just shuts itself off. Zero load, no power being drawn, nothing. Done. I guess it was just only doing it when I sped up time. But basically it's at 100% heat level. Now it won't work. It's done. But you don't need to get an engineer out there to fix it. What you do need to do is you just need to wait. And you wait a little while. As you can see, the heat level starts to decrease. And once it reaches 0, you can then turn the whole thing back on again. I mean, if you had power. But you can turn it on again, it'll start working. So you do have to monitor your heat levels, at least to the point where you can't just burn out everything you have in order to get all the fuel right now. So you do have to manage that. So heat is now a thing, both internally with some parts and externally with all parts. And I'm sure at some point we will be demonstrating that as well. So because it exploded and drew everyone's attention over that way, we're going to be checking out a couple other vessels here, because this is the whole of the mining operation. This is it. This is how you mine. This is how you get your stuff, and then once it's in your tank, you can do with it what you want. You can transfer it to another vessel via Kerbal attachment, or just docking, or you can burn it out right here. Totally up to you. But that's it. But then you have to say, well, can you drill anywhere? Well, that's where the other exploding vessel comes from. Is no, you can't exactly drill anywhere, or you can, but you may not get what you want. So let's go check out Mr. Explodey there. Okay, so not exactly the Explodey guy, but more like his cousin. This is one of a pair of devices that is used for ore discovery on a planet. Now, we are over Kerbin, of course. Now, with Kerbin, the ore dispersion is uniform. I mean, it's basically uniform. And this is the larger of two scanners because I only wanted to use one satellite. So there's two types of scanners. One requires multiple satellites. The other one only really needs one satellite. So this one I wanted to demonstrate the one satellite option. And what we're going to do is we right click, and as you can see, ore 3.56% average. That is all you're ever really going to see over Kerbin. When you're over Kerbin, you're going to get a 3.56% average, and that's average across the board. Now what we do is if we toggle our overlay, boom, there's our overlay. Now this is basically going to show you hot spots in the ground of ore, but as you can see, like I said, Kerbin is basically uniform. But as you can see, dark spots, no ore. No ore. Most likely ocean. It's dark over there, so it's hard to see, but most likely ocean. But then you have kind of a purplish tone here. Now you have a couple of things. You have cutoff minus, cutoff plus. Cutoff meaning how deep is the ore. There you go. The very deep, hardcore vein of ore there versus just general ore everywhere. So, this is a 3.56% average. You dump your drill anywhere on Kerbin, you're probably going to get what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a huge payload, if you're looking for something that's going to really kick it in the gear, there you go. There's your hotspot. That's what you're looking for. So as you can see, the rest of the, and there's another one there. So the rest of the globe, at least especially up here in the ice, not really a lot. Not really a lot. So that's how you get that working for you. Now you can have your color, monochrome 40%, inverse 40%, heat map green. So, you can say, well, how hot is it? And that's probably how most people are going to use it, because you have hotspots. Hotspot, hotspot, hotspot. And that way you don't have to use the cutoff so much. But it's your option, whichever color scheme you like better. You have a heat map blue, so you can be a predator, hunting for them ores, purring at it every once in a while before you go and visit Brew and take it out. And then your standard monochrome. And this sort of starts out as monochrome, just everything light or dark purple. Monochrome meaning monocolor, not black and white, oddly enough. So you can do inverse, which I guess is just inverse of purple, and then heat map. So we'll stick with heat map blue because it's actually pretty nice and stands out. And then we can just do the cutoff, increase the cutoff, and then boom, hotspots, big red hotspots. And again, so you get a 3.56% average. On Kerbin, you're going to get, a few hotspots here and there, but those are the places you're going to want to drill. So if you're looking for ore, This is how you start. This is how you start. You map it out, and this is instant. As soon as you turn it on, boom. You don't have to orbit the planet 17,000 times to scan every inch of it. As soon as you turn on the scanner, it bounces the signal, bounces it back. This big one here will scan the entire planet, top to bottom. Don't know how it does it, but it does. Probably uses massive amounts of X-rays to burninate everything on the planet. If there was life, there isn't anymore. But you found your ore. Now, the smaller one, again, it requires satellite relays, so you need multiples. This one scans 100%. The smaller ones scan like 20 or 30%, so you need at least 3 of them to get a roughly 90% average of a planet. If that's your thing, it's something that you can do. They both fit about the same way. They stick onto a thing, and then they expand. This one is this big fan. The smaller one actually looks like a big, let's say, octagon, and we'll show that off, of course. And then again, we can retract our scanner, which closes it up, turns everything off. And that's about how it launches. So if you launch one into orbit, or if you're putting one on your ship, you're going to want to have one on each side, or you're going to want one right on the nose like this is. Otherwise, you're going to catch a lot of air and flip over, which is not fun. And there it is. So that's one half. Now the other half is our dear little friend who got so excited about the world, he blew up. And we're going to go check him out now. Alright, and here's the Humble Bumble showing off, well, our new part. Now, the new part is right here. You can probably see it already. It's this little guy right here in the middle. It is the surface scanner module. Body Kerbin, biome shores, latitude, longitude, and or surface amount. Now, it shows you the latitude, longitude, biome, which is great, as well as the body you're on, in case you happen to forget exactly what planet you're sitting on. But, you know, more information is better than less. And then it shows you the ore surface. Now, what this does is it works in tandem with the guy floating up in the sky. And how that works is the guy up there says, okay, here's a hot spot. And then you bring this little guy down, land him somewhere on, near, or around a hot spot, and you say how much ore is actually there, and it gives you a better reading. So where it says there's about 3.64% around, right here there's 7.41. Now we could go driving around. I mean, we could drive all over the place, and we probably wouldn't get this much higher than 7.42. Maybe it goes down to 7.40 because you have to go pretty far, either to get a hot spot or to lose one. It's not like you drive over it and within 2 seconds you're on the other side. I'm fairly certain you can attach this to a flying vehicle and maybe get a reading of the ground. I have not attempted to do so. It may be a lot like the accelerometer, where if it's off the ground moving at high speeds, it doesn't work. So that would make most sense to me. But I haven't tried it. I just put it on the rover and brought it out here to see exactly what they meant by it works in tandem. And it works in tandem, of course, by showing you how much ore is in the surface. So you can put up a satellite, find a hot spot, drop one of these guys down here, and then say, wow, there's like 100% ore right here. This is it. This is the spot. Let's set up shop. And that's it. And if you guys are wondering why he exploded, it's because when you build little teeny tiny things like this out of wire frames, and then you speed up time, the frames have a hard time understanding exactly where they need to be in reality, and then they explode. But yeah, that's our new part, and that's how you ore scan. You bring up a satellite, you find a hotspot, you have the option of dropping a rover. It's not required, and then you drop your drill on a hotspot. Just go to town, build yourself a little shop, sell some fuel to passing aliens. And with that, let's go check out a few other things. Alright, here we are in career mode, as you can tell. Everything here is set to level 2, so we can show off a few things. Now, what I want to show off, first of all, is a couple of things here that have changed right here on the front menu that you probably wouldn't notice. It took me a minute to notice it. The biggest one is this little guy right down here. Boom. Warp to next morning. We now have a button that allows you to get out of nighttime. Isn't that nice? You no longer have to warp around and hope you don't skip the sun over the top of the horizon to dusk. You can actually just click the button. We'll go ahead and do that now. You click the button, and it warps you to the next day. Done. Every time. You can do that anytime you want. You want to skip a day, you just click, boom, skips one day. Skips half a day. Sun's going over the horizon, you don't want to launch at night, boom, click that button, and you're good to go. So it skips to where the sun's just right there. Well, right there. Where the sun's over this way somewhere. And you have daylight. You're good to go. So I love that button. When I saw that, I squealed a lot, just like a little girl. Now, there's a few changes in each of the buildings that I want to go ahead and check out. Not really much changes in the tracking station, but it's hard to tell changes in the tracking station because changes in the tracking station are tiered. So, of course, patch conics, things like that are hard to to come by unless you upgrade it fully, and I didn't want to do that right away. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at a couple of things here. First off, we're going to start with the Science Bay, R&D facility, because if you look, you have everything you can unlock, boom, 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 normally. Then if you keep going, you can see all the things you will unlock. It's great. It's no longer guessing. You no longer have to say, well, which one is it? Which one do I buy to get to that part I want? I don't know, and it's hard to get science, and oh my god. Or, you know, look online and have a map, you know, in hand going, okay, this one goes here. You don't do that anymore. You can actually click. You can click. So you have heavy aerodynamics. Technology has unresearched requirements. So like 300 science for that. The description, and then all the parts and all the part descriptions that you can get for that particular thing. And every single one of these, anything that you want, you can click on it, look at it. New icons, of course. We have like Engineering 101. So we now have the engineering sign. A lot of the icons you're going to see here are the same ones you've seen before, but you can have ones like this with like this little box here is different. But a lot of the other ones look the same. So a couple of placeholders or repeating ones were taken out. Advanced fuel systems, so on and so forth. But everything here works exactly the same. It just looks a little bit different. Of course, you have your science archives as well. So Verna, of course, being Verna, Moho, Eve, Gilly, Kerbin. Nothing has changed here. This is actually the first time I looked at this, but nothing has changed here. And then, as I said, yeah, you can go through and you can actually see where you're going. So you can map out, you can plan out where you're going, and you're going to need to. And I will explain why here in a moment. So we're going to head back, and we're going to go to our astronaut complex. And the reason why is because it was in the astronaut complex that I decided, rather than acquiring science and money legitimately for this Let's Learn, I was going to cheat my way to it. And the reason why is because I went inside and I was looking for a crew to fly into space. And I was like, I'm going to go ahead and hire me a whole bunch of Kerbals because I have space for 12 Kerbals. I'm going to hire a ton of Kerbals. So I start hiring Kerbals. Bum, 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 bum. And then suddenly I see a big red bar up here. And then I look at my money, and I had gone from almost $1 million funds to 75,000. And the reason why is because hiring people now costs money. Our next hire is 123,300. I believe it increases exponentially with each hire. So if we hire Jessan Kerman, yeah, next hire 138,500. So every time you hire a Kerbal, it costs more to hire another Kerbal. So before, when you were like, oh, I can't kill my Kerbal, he's a level 3 pilot, don't want to blow him up. Now you're like, well, he's a level 3 pilot, and my next Kerbal hires $500,000, and there's no way I'm paying for that. And every time you hire a Kerbal, of course, they do come out as a scientist, pilot, engineer. And they are pre-assigned now, rather than being assigned. I remember when they first launched this, when you hired a Kerbal, they were randomly assigned, and now they are pre-assigned, so you can decide. And I believe that was in a recent update, too. They are pre-assigned, so you can say, I want a pilot, I want an engineer, I want a scientist, and then you hire them over, and now they give you all the information. But it now costs funds, so be careful when you're hiring Kerbals. You know, Bill, Jeb, and Bob are your freebies, and Valentina, sorry, Valentina are also your freebies. So you get 4 free Kerbals, no charge. They volunteered, you know, they come here to save the day and earn your respect. But after that, all the rest of these guys, they're mercenaries. They want all the money. And you're going to have to pay them. So be careful with that. Very, very careful with that. Now, the reason why science is hard to get, that's the thing, science is hard to get, is because there's been some rebalancing. So if we go over into the contracts, hey, Gene's always happy. So if we go over here to the contracts area, we're going to get a lot of new contracts. And these are contracts that we're going to see a lot. And these ones are the ones that have been kind of tearing me up. We have new contracts like ferry a VIP safely to his or her destination. And you just have to go someplace. Barony's Travel itinerary for 9,000. Orbit around Kerbin for 3,000. That's all you have to do, right? But do you see any blue on here? No. Blue? No. Blue? 8. Blue? 3, 3, and 3. Scroll down. Nothing. 3. 4, 4, 4. Now these are pretty, I mean, these are start level 1, star 1 contracts. Now you have star 2 contracts, you're getting like 4. None. Take a look at this one. None. No science. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. And these are crew, this is a multi-crew report around Kerbin flying around. These are, you're not getting any science out of this. You're getting rep and you're getting money. But you're not getting any science out of it because science has been rebalanced. Science is no longer something that you can acquire a ton of simply by sending a rocket into orbit. And they're like, here, I have 200 science for completing that contract because yay. So science has been rebalanced, and there's a couple of reasons for that. So if we exit really quick, Now, I haven't taken too close a look at the administration building, but I'm pretty sure nothing here has really changed. We have we have a bailout grant. We must be in dire straits to be considering such an option. Accepting a public grant could save us from bankruptcy, but it would also put a very serious dent in the space program's reputation. However, the space program is too big to fail, so if it's either this option or closing shop, I would advise you accept the money. So you get a ton of money for all your rep. And then we have research rights sellout. We could make a quick buck from the science and R&D team as collected by selling exclusive research rights to the highest bidder. Yes, that means we wouldn't be able to make use of that science ourselves, but for exclusive rights, I'm sure we could fetch a pretty penny from some large agency or conglomerate. So if you have a ton of science, you can get a ton of money by selling a ton of science. So they do have two additional options, which I did not see before, but you can rebalance everything. You can say, hey, I need science and I'm getting too much money. Let's go ahead and flip it up, and you can go in here and fix that. And that's one option. Now, get money here. I like that. Let's go here and get money. Now, the other way to get science is by a new system which Harvester announced, and I'm sure everyone's read it if you read the dev blogs, is the science over time. Now, anybody who's dealt with the near future propulsion pack, I believe is what it was, either near future propulsion or there's another one whose name I don't recall off the top of my head, but it's the one where you could generate science by putting Kerbals in space. You put Kerbals in space, and they go around in space, and they generate science. And depending on what biome you're around, what planet you're around, Kerbin for the little bit of science, and Jewel for a maximum amount of science, you could get a ton of science by having Kerbals in space. Well, they've taken that and they've moved it to a new level. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up into space, where I currently have an orbiting space station that's going to demonstrate how you can acquire science over time and not have to do a bunch of science all at once. So scavenging all the science around the launch pad is not going to be as cool as we once thought. So let me go ahead and jump on over there, and I'll see you guys there. Welcome to Kylab 1. And yes, the S is missing on purpose. So in Kylab 1, we have a couple of people. We have Teresa, Seacott, Azdra, and I believe we have an engineer by Jaundice Cameron. I just can't get over that name. And what we have here is we have our science lab. Now, the science lab before was you could clean up some parts, you could, fix rovers, do things like that. So it was helpful, but the thing was huge and unwieldy, and using a one-shot spaceship or modding the parts to be reusable was a lot easier than bringing this monstrosity up to any place and landing it safely. Well, now you might want to reconsider, because now you can right-click and look at our stats. Lab status operational, science 0 of 500, data 0 of 500, rate 0 science per day, research and active, transmit science, and start research. Now, here's the fun part. There's a couple of normal science stuff that you guys have seen before. We have a goo canister, we have a thermometer, and we have a barometric pressure. Now, on the way up, I took a couple of readings on a lot of that stuff. And then we have this new one here. This is the atmospheric fluid spectrovariometer, I believe is what it's called. Basically, it's a tube, air passes through it, and they take readings on it. It's basically similar to the press mat barometer, but bigger and a lot more unwieldy. And it gives you a ton of science. So I wanted to show off that new science part. That is like one of the only new, completely different science parts that generate science that I could find. So I just wanted to show that off. I really don't know what its purpose is. I mean, it's very similar to the barometer. So I really wouldn't know what it is. I ran it. I basically did a run on it as we were leaving the atmosphere on all 4 of these. And it got us a little bit of science. But what I want to demonstrate more than that is what you do with it. So if you review your data, atmosphere analysis from the upper atmosphere over Kerbin. It seems there is very little atmosphere at these altitudes. Make sure you're properly suited up if you plan to go outside. Now, normally what you'd see is keep and transmit. And then if you had like the old lab, it would say increase science, which basically would increase the amount you could transmit. You just increase it and then get it, right? Well, this is processed in lab module, plus 22 data. So we're going to collect that. Boom. And it's going to take a little bit of time, as you can see. 2, 3, and it's going to use power. It's going to use so much power. This particular module is very, very hefty. So we're going to speed up time a little bit. Now, what's interesting is, as you can see, speeding up time doesn't speed up the amount of science that gets processed very much. I mean, it might have increased a little bit, but all we really did is keep our power from draining. But we're going to go, and we're going to let that happen. I think we could do multiples. I hope we can do multiples. I don't really want to wait for the whole thing to go. So we're going to go ahead and review this data, and plus 9 data, process in lab module. And I wonder if that one's going to be, we're just going to say keep. Now, once you process it, of course, you can keep the data or reset the experiment, or you can transmit, so the data isn't lost. And I'm waiting and waiting, and yeah, we're going to be waiting for a minute. Let's go ahead and go around. Ooh, this takes a lot longer than I thought. Maybe I should have done this before we came up here. Alright, we'll be back when it's done processing, so that way we can actually show it off. One orbit, still not done, but that doesn't matter because it turns out even without the pop-up, we still got the science from our thermometer, so we're just going to jack the science from the other two. Review data, we get plus 13 science, or excuse me, plus 13 data, there is a difference, plus 13 data from that, and apparently it, I wonder if that's a bug or if that's just instant. But apparently if this one's running, you can review the data and just jack the science. So we're getting plus 12 data off of this. And then what we do is we do this. We right click here, and now we have science 0, data 34, rate 0.092 science per day. So we can have up to 500 data, which will then convert into up to 500 science, which then either has to be transmitted or collected, and we're still processing that atmospheric data. So we're going to start our research, and now they're researching. So over time, now I'm not certain. Let's go ahead and speed up time a little bit and find out. Oh, can't go any faster than that. Let's go ahead and take a look and see if that reduces our science. So yeah, it looks like it does not reduce our data amount, but it generates science for us. So we have 0.0092 science per day with 0.002 science out of 500. So now you have science labs. You can actually have science labs. You can go to a planet or a moon, drop a lab on said planet or moon. We ran out of power and we're all going to die. You can actually have, you can have science, someone doing your thing. And then you can go out with rovers and with Kerbals and with whatever else and have them grab science, bring it to the lab, fill up the lab, and just generate science in the lab. And now you have a reason to have a base on a planet or a moon and to bring science to that base or planet, rather than just going there with a rover, grabbing as much as you can, transmitting it back, or dropping a Kerbal, like just bombing Kerbals everywhere, grabbing all the science you can from that one area and then taking off and going home with it. So now you have a reason to actually take it to a lab or have a base there, which is nice. It's so nice because now you can have an orbital space station around Duna, and you can have like ships go down and collect science and bring it up, and then you can have this thing generating science for you without any problems. Oh, and while we're here, you guys are going to ask, so I might as well show it off, because if I don't, you're going to be upset. Yes, there are indeed internals! Yes, there are internals for the science lab now. You can look around, very high definition. You have aspirator, servo, snacks, science, experiments, tubes, tests, parts, air, tools, and circuits. We have all sorts of sticky notes lying around telling, don't press red button, and lock up Jeb. I don't know if that means lock up Jeb or Jeb lock up. We'll leave that to the imagination, I guess. So yes, we do have an actual interior now, tiered interior. It's interior. Okay, that was not even funny. And then our old interior, of course, which seems less pretty, but is still functional. And then our standard interior. So yes, there are now interiors to the science bay. There's actually a lot of interiors, which we will cover as we cover all the new parts. Not all the new parts. There are some parts we will skip, but we will cover the majority of parts. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright everybody, here we are in the VAB. Now we're going to take a look at some of the new parts and some of the changes to old parts, but before we do all that, there's some changes here in the VAB that we need to look at first. Mostly, it's just an update to some of the images and items that we have, like down here in the corner. Down here where we have the information on our spaceship, it's going to be the same information you've seen before, but it's now underneath a gear icon. So we have parts, mass, size, height, width, length, design, checklist, show severity of several options including information. We have information, warnings, and oh my god, we're all going to die. Nothing to report, nothing to see either, which is great because there's nothing in our list. Now, some of the new parts will be loaded. Now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our load screen, because where else would you load parts? And we're going to take a look at this. Now, you're going to see some stuff here. Now, this icon usually means that the ship part in question is built from a older version of the game and does not show all the parts. But if you look at the ones that were built, like the stock ones, the ones that were built in the most recent version of the game, you can see there's now a little teeny tiny picture next to it, kind of showing you what it is that you built. So if you have a really funny naming convention and you're like, what is the X3A 0.215. I don't even remember that ship that I built 20 years ago. You can take a look and you can get kind of a visual idea going, oh, it's that ship. Okay, that's fine. And of course we have the SPH and the VAB for different things. Now here's some fun stuff that I think is very interesting. If we go ahead and load like the Super Heavy Lander here. Hey there, little buddy, little stock ship, the Super Heavy Lander. And then we say, well, you know what? I have two parts of a ship I want to combine. I'm gonna have to rebuild it, or I'm gonna have to put parts of it in the sub-assemblies and drag them out and stack them up. And well, you don't really have to do that. You can. You don't have to do that anymore. Let's go ahead and take something like, oh, I don't know, the ion-powered space probe. Merge. One ion-powered space probe. Now, of course, we can't merge it because there's no place to stick it, so we might as well dump it. Let's go ahead and see if we can do this. Let's take another lander here. And let's merge that lander. There you go, look at that. And again, can't merge it because, no, wrong one. Super Heavy Lander is what we're looking for. Let's try that one more time. There it is. Merge the Super Heavy Lander. Should give us something to stack onto. Guess it's not going to. But, in most cases you can. I don't know why it's being such a pain. But in most cases you can. Point being is now you can build two ships who are specifically designed to stick together. And when you do so, and I'm just working with stock parts, when you do so, you can merge them. So you can open up one, load, and then you can open up another, and instead of loading, merge, and then you can just stack them onto each other, provided they have parts that can, of course, be stuck together. It's a very interesting, very fun system that's very entertaining and enjoyable. New. Now you have save and continue, cancel, and don't save as some options that now pop up. So when you press new, you don't have to worry about going, oh, let's load, or oh, let's save, and click new. Oh, God, I just clicked new, and all that work I put into that rocket for the last 3 hours is gone forever. Now you have warnings. You do have warnings now, so we're going to go ahead and say don't save, because we don't want to save that. Alright, so let's take a look at a couple of things here. Let's look at some of the parts. We now have the Mark 1 inline cockpit, which looks very alienese, less like it used to, now like something else. And it comes with something super special. If you said the word interior, you get yourself a cookie. That's right, there's interiors to nearly everything now. If not everything, then nearly everything. And we will take a look at interiors in another time. We're not going to look at interiors right now. Actually, let's go ahead and do this, because there's going to be a few bajillion parts that we're going to be looking at. So let me go ahead and load up the ship that will show you most of the parts, which is coming from the SPH, but that's okay. And we're looking at parts. Prepare your eyes for this, the Kerbal Werble 2.0. These are a large selection of new parts, minus a couple of things. The couple of things, of course, are what we've already seen. The large holding tank, the small holding tank, the drill. All that has been left out. But these are some additional parts. Now, wings, you can go through every single wing, okay? There are a bajillion wings in this that you can just go through. There are so many wings. Just so many wings. As a matter of fact, there's one of the wings right there. So many wings. There are just too many wings. And they've updated the wings, and they're prettier. The Delta wing has gone and gotten itself some heat shield on there. So we're not going to cover every wing. We're not going to cover every wing, but we are going to cover a few parts here. So we have like a tail wing here. We're going to take them off as we look at them. So we have a tail wing here, very space shuttle-y. We have some standard Delta style wings for different sized airplanes. A very early Delta wing, swept wing that you get. A very interesting wing here, very sharp looking. And then we have the big jumbo jet wing is what we're looking at. So those are some of the wings that you can get. Now here are some of the landing gear. We finally got new landing gear, ladies and gentlemen. So we have a large landing gear. This landing gear, of course, being used. Wow, who needs landing gear? You now have like all the light in the world ever. We have a new landing gear, which of course, boop, gets itself all closed up. Looks like a little pod. Very nice. And that can be used for those big jumbo jets as well. Same thing with this one, smaller nose cone. So you can start deployed or start not deployed. Not sure why the light is permanently on in the VAB, but apparently it is. So we have these new big gear for big planes instead of teeny tiny gear for big planes. Then we have these little Cessna guys. These guys, they don't retract. They're very early gear. They don't retract. They work really well though. You have the side pylons here that kind of stick out, and then you have the one nose wheel, and the nose wheel is steerable. It's actually steerable. You can steer it, and you can brake it, and well, brake as in brakes, not as in to shatter. So you can have a little Cessna plane if you want to, or something very light that lands very easily. But remember, aerodynamically speaking, these things will be sticking out. So you have to cope with that. So you have these new wheels, very cute little wheels, very funny little wheels. Alright, now we're getting to more of the meat, and we'll start on this meat. This meat is fun meat, because this meat right here, it's sideways. I guess we could turn the whole thing crooked really quick. There you go. These things are containers. They are space containers. They contain space. But you can put things in that space, including the newly resized goo canisters. We're going to go ahead and just throw that in there. You can attach things to the sides, I believe, on these ones. No, top and bottom apparently only. I thought you could attach ones to the side. Maybe you can on the smaller one, but on this one you can't. So you have the newly resized goo container. If you guys don't remember how big the goo container used to be, it used to be roughly the same size as the side of the pod. Now they're about, half that size. So much smaller goo containers, which is very, very nice. But you can fit all sorts of stuff in these. You can close them up, open them up. And of course, there's a new feature in the VAB where, of course, when you get close to something, you can see what's in it or behind it, which is great. And they also come with heat shields. So if you turn it over, oh, this one is not heat shielded. Well, they say they're heat shielded. This one is not visually heat shielded. However, its tiny, tiny, tiny companion, which again is a 1.25 meter bay, goes underneath the pod very nicely, is heat shielded. See it? Not gonna attach. There you go. Yeah, this one is heat shielded, visually heat shielded, to where you can actually bring stuff down. I've kind of wanted to try putting a command seat in here and then stuffing a Kerbal in it and then having him come down, but I don't think it's big enough. Maybe with the bigger one we could try that, you know, this emergency escape vehicle. But yeah, you have these now, which can be detached and dumped if you need, or they can be kept on, depending on how you want to do it, but it is something you can do. Speaking of heat shields, heat shield! Several sizes of heat shield, which are now located under aerodynamics. If you've ever used the Deadly Reentry mod, they've been located under structural, I believe. But for our KSP, they are now located under that, which is the aerodynamics. And there are several sizes, and as you can see, when you put things on, they try to do fairings for those. So yeah, we have several ginormous sizes for covering all sorts of vessels and vehicles for heat shields, which is great because you're going to need those too for very specific reasons. And let's go ahead and pop that off. Now, more stuff! Back to the wings. Now, this wing is not really a wing. It is a air brake. It is an air brake, and you can open and close an air brake. So we actually have air brakes now. Rather than wings, you can just stick out an air brake and slow yourself down, making it look nice. Or you can use it in space as some sort of odd shielding system. Haven't tried it, don't know how well it works, might flip your vessel over, but it is an air brake that you can actually use now and deploy and undeploy. You're probably going to need action groups for that, but very optional. Alright, we're getting down to the meat here. We have now one of these, the fuel cell array. Now, if you don't know what a fuel cell array is, it's an array of fuel cells. Duh. And if you don't know what a fuel cell is exactly what it sounds like. Now, I could demonstrate how a fuel cell works, but it's very basic. You take some fuel, actual fuel, liquid fuel and oxidizer, and then you don't have to attach the fuel cell to it, but you can attach a fuel cell. And basically what this does is it converts liquid fuel and oxidizer to power, to electricity, and it acts as its own battery. And of course you have a larger one here with 300 for 6 of them. And you use that to use your fuel as power. So if you don't have any batteries, if you don't have any solar power, or if you need backup and you have an excess amount of fuel, say if you're running a drilling unit, you can use these guys. And it generates fuel, or electricity from fuel. Very basic, and they're very pretty. Not really much to demonstrate, because all you do is you just right click and you say start, and it starts draining fuel out of here and dumping power into there, and batteries and anything else you have to store it with. So that's very nice. Go ahead and take this off because we know what that is. Now, we have our atmospheric doohickey that we talked about before. For whatever reason I can't right click it. Our atmospheric fluid spectrovariometer, which basically is a funny way of saying barometer. I don't know why they needed 2 barometers, but now we have 2. And then from that, the scanners. We also have scanner number 1, which we showed previously. And the narrowband scanner number 2 doesn't really expand, I don't believe. Yeah, does not expand or anything, and it's much tinier, and you need 3 of them to cover a planet. So 3 in 3 different positions to cover a planet. Now, we're down to here. We have a new intake. It is just basically an air intake. It is streamlined so you can put it up underneath an engine or underneath a wing. Makes it look sexy. Other than that, it's just an intake. We have a pre-cooler, which I believe is this little guy. And you know what I just realized? We also have something on the pre-cooler, which I have to find. There it is. So we have the pre-cooler here, which basically is just a redesigned version of the pre-cooler we already had. And then we have this little guy. This little guy is cute. He is a drogue chute, the M12R radial-mounted drogue chute. So it's a tinier version of the radial-mounted parachute, which should be located somewhere around in here. Oh, this little guy. So as you can see, big guy, teeny tiny guy. So it's a drogue chute for drag rather than for full stop. So if you need to slow yourself down and you want radials, you now have a radial drogue chute. It's very nice, very pretty. Does what chutes do, slows you down, tries to make you not hit the ground so fast. So we have our pre-cooler here, and then we have an engine cowling, which I don't think it acts as an engine. I think it's just an engine cowling. Let's go ahead and double check that, because I am fairly not certain which way that goes. And that is an engine. I've lost it already. Wow. I already lost, man. Alright, where is it? It's around here somewhere. Yeah, I believe it's an engine cowling rather than... Yes, it's a cowling. So engine nacelle. So yeah, it's an cowling. It's an engine nacelle. It doesn't actually act as an engine. So you find it in here as a nacelle. You put engine parts on it and you're good to go. So like, of course, you put this and then you put this in front of that. And then you can look inside. Well, you can't really look inside. But the idea is that you could look inside, I suppose, and see the engine there. So that's how that works. Super special. Now, we have a couple other things here. We have our new nose cone, which now acts as an SAS unit. It does not do science anymore. It is no longer a science nose cone. It is now an avionics nose cone, so you can put it on the nose of a ship, a probe, or whatever. It does not act as a probe. It only acts as an SAS unit, but it is something that you can put on the top of your ship in order to save you from sickness, apparently. So very nice. We have our Mark II, or Mark 1, Mark II? Mark 1 inline cockpit, which we've already looked at. Now we have this little guy. This is the RT5 Fleet solid fuel booster. It is a much tinier version of our standard solid fuel booster, the one everyone recognizes from very early on in their KSP history. It is now its tiny, derpy little cousin. It has about a quarter of the amount of fuel. I'd say I wouldn't even venture to say half. I mean, it's got thrust limit is 100. A third. So this is 3 out of 3, and this is 1 out of 1. So it is a teeny tiny just of a burst. That's it. It lasts for about 3 to 5 seconds and you're done. It's helpful. It's useful. It can get you up pretty high, but don't rely on it in a pinch because it's not going to last that long. Then we have a new xenon tank, the X750 xenon container. It contains xenon gas. That's all it is. It's just xenon gas fuel tank. And if you're wondering why, it's because this is the original. That's the new one. So we have the original teeny tiny one, and the new, very large, again, framed tire looking thing. I guess it's just a gas container with some wire framing. Very light, but it's a xenon container. And those are many of the new parts. Now, you guys are probably wondering about one new part, which you probably saw, and you're like, where is it? Here. We have some advanced nose cone type A. Basically nose cones. Again, not going to go through every part, but we got some nose cones and things like that. Just basic structural stuff. Oddly shaped nose cone. Turn your nose up at it, sir. And then we have these. These are the things you guys want to see. I know. We have fairings, and I put that the wrong way. Let's go ahead and try that again. Oh, you guys just got to see a demonstration of something. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. So we go like this, and we can make a fairing. Now, the way it works is you click. You click, you make it, you click. As soon as you can click. Bring it out. Click, bring it in, click, click. It's not going to let me do it. There you go. Place cross section. You have to wait for it to turn green. So you have to have it like within a certain frame. But as soon as you can like do whatever you want with it. Boom. And then as soon as you get near it, and that's the coolest part right there. I think that is probably the most epic thing ever. If you want to see what's inside your... I want to call it a cowling again. If you want to see what's inside your fairing... Now, of course, it destroys the fairing, unfortunately, when you do that. But if you want to see what's inside your fairing, you can. By just getting near it. Place. You have to actually stop moving is the problem I'm having. I keep trying to just click and move. You have to stop moving for like half a second. So you can make some pretty interesting shapes if you need to. This is not one of those things where you're not allowed to make certain shapes. And you can move it around and do your thing. Now, I've never experienced jettisoning one of these before, honestly. I think we should take a look at that. I think we will. I think we'll take I think what I'll do is I'll put together a rocket really quick and toss some parts on there just really fast and show them off, for the sole purpose of showing off a couple of very awesome things that I think you guys absolutely need to see. But this right here, I don't think I'll ever get tired of this. This right here could be the whole game for me, just touching the fairings. Look at this. I mean, epic. Now, of course, if you want to cancel, you can delete your fairing or edit your fairing by right-clicking, so you can edit fairing. And then what you can do there, and of course you have, it doesn't really show it, but you have right mouse button is edit previous section, and then it has a cost and a mass. So if you right mouse button, then right mouse button, and you kind of have to wait a second because it's doing some math, but you right mouse button and you can edit it if you mess it up. You're like, you know what, I'll just do something simple, something cheap, something tiny like that. There you go. You know, you have that as an option. So it's a very interesting system. You cannot stack fairings. You cannot stack a fairing on top of a fairing. You cannot take another part and stick it on top of a fairing. That's not what it's for, but you can do that. So you have that as a grand and glorious option for yourself. Now, I know you guys are going to want to see the interiors, which I guess we can show, and then we will finish off with a grand and glorious rocket to show off a couple of things. So I will see you guys outside really quick. Alright everyone, just a quick view of our interiors. We have a few interiors, of course. Everything now has its own interior. It doesn't have another interior being reused or anything like that. So let's go ahead and just hit our camera and start at the beginning. So we have our Mark 1 inline cockpit. Now has a very open, very sexy cockpit that it never had before, unless of course you had the mod. And it even has this little gun sight here. Well, gun sight, aiming sight, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really do anything. It's non-functional at the moment, but it is something that kind of points your nose in the right direction if you like that sort of thing. And it's just a very basic cockpit, but you can finally go into the cockpit, look around, and you don't have to worry about just seeing nothing but steel frame walls. So we actually have an interior cockpit. Isn't that nice? It's so nice. Now if we switch, we have the Mark III cockpit, fully functional. Carries 4 Kerbals, I believe. Yeah, 4 Kerbals. That's Bill, Jeb, Bob, and Valentina. Because this is like, the Mark III cockpit's always been like the thing. So having an extra seat for Valentina just makes sense. So we have the right and the left, and lots of places for raster prop. Lots and lots of places for raster prop, if you so desire. And then all 4 seats are available. Ta-da! And then we're going to go back here. So now we have back here where we have the jet. I believe it's a 4-seater jet style, the very thin one with the door on top. So you have the 4 seats here, new interior, very nice, lots of airbags apparently. Space plane is really what it is, a space planey one. And then when we go back, we have the 16-seater, the insanely 16-seater. I never thought to myself, I thought when I first saw it, I thought, how can you get 16 Kerbals into that teeny tiny thing? Apparently they figured out how, because you can get 16 Kerbals in this thing. Look at this thing. This is the airliner of airliners. So if you're going to make a Kerbal movie and you needed an interior, you got it. This is it. This is your staring out the window. There's something on the wing. Yes, this is it. This is your deal. Shatner, you can Shatner the crap out of it. So yes, you do have new interiors now, and you just go through all the Kerbals in the room. There's just so many of them. They're all merrily on their way to nowhere in particular. And then of course the exit's up there through the room. So lots more places for raster prop stuff as well. Very, 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 very nice. So those are some interiors. So I believe that's covered everything that I wanted to point out, or everything I myself have discovered. There's always more things to discover. And with that, we're going to show off one final triumphant thing, I think, which is not flying. We're not going to do flying. I know everyone's like, what about the aerodynamics? The aerodynamics are noticeable. They can be annoying, but it honestly depends on your rocket designs and how well you fly. Planes, it doesn't really alter planes that much. You can still build psychotic wanton destruction devices and they'll still go through the air. Most of it is going up, when you're going up and making sure your rocket doesn't flip out. That's really the big thing. But that's what fairings are for, right? So let's go ahead and get ourselves a demonstration of a rocket launch, because I think another of my favorite features is coming up, and I hope you guys will enjoy it too. So let's get over there and launch ourselves a rocket. Alright everybody, here we are at the launch pad, and with Valentina flying the Valentine 1, because why not? And as you can see, my launch stages aren't normal, because normally you'd see my launch stages go as a one fell swoop, but there's something I wanted to show off. and that is the following. We now have smoke effects. There are now smoke effects. Now, the smoke effects change depending on your launch pad. When you have a tier 1 pad, it just goes out in a big circle. When you have a tier 2 pad, it goes out in 3 different directions. And then when you have the tier 3 pad, it goes out to the left and to the right. And that is so awesome, isn't it? And of course, the amount of smoke increases as you throttle up. So let's go ahead and throttle up. And then go. And then as you watch and you leave, smoke decreases, and then the smoke puffs out and is gone. So you actually have launch effects now. Wonderful. Launch effects. Now here's something that I wanted to demonstrate. If you notice, there's a bit of a camera shake. Now the camera shake isn't because of the camera. The camera shake is because the camera actually shakes now. So if we were to go inside the ship, the camera shakes. And the Kerbals view is now all shaky. That is supposed to be there. Now, you can turn it off. You can turn it off for either the ship, or you can turn it off for the ship and the interior. You're not required to keep it for either. So you don't have to worry about, like, if you don't like it, you can just, I'll actually demonstrate it here just to kind of show off. You can press escape, you can go to your settings, and very quickly, you just go down here, camera wobble external, camera wobble internal. You just take this, crank it down to 0, apply, accept, resume, and boom, you're back to your standard non-shaky Kerbal camera. But you can still have your internal camera be shaky if you wanted to do that RP. I like the shaking for the interior. I do. I think it's well balanced and it looks realistic, especially when you're coming down through the atmosphere or you're having a rocky time. But outside, I find that it actually causes more space flight sickness than anything else. So what I'm doing here is I am not turning the ship. I really should. I'm not turning the ship because of the atmosphere. I'm actually not turning the ship because of a design flaw, I guess you could say. I'm concerned regarding a design flaw which may cause the ship to tear itself apart. And that design flaw is I forgot Sepatrons. I forgot little boosters to keep us from breaking out. Now, as you can see, we're not turning quite so easily through the atmosphere. There you go. We're not turning quite so easily through the atmosphere. It does take a little bit of work to get your ship to go where you want it to go. And you can't do a very early turn. If you try to do a turn too early, you will end up with your rocket flipping over. 9,000, 10,000 meters, if you're doing 300-400 meters per second and you try to do a turn, your rocket will flip. It'll just say, nope, I'm done, and it will roll over, even if you have a nice nose cone going on, because what you're doing is you're pushing against oncoming wind. Basically, the oncoming wind is calculated to come down across your frame, so a nose cone like this works fine. But if you're actually heading this way, and your nose is pointing this way, the wind is no longer coming straight down, it's now coming down like this, and it's going to roll your rocket, because it's going to push down on the nose while the rocket pushes forward, and you're just going to spin out. It happens a lot, but not as bad as if you've ever used FAR. If you've ever used FAR, it's not nearly as insane. Now, you guys might be wondering why I'm still burning the rockets even though we're at 92 kilometers, and it's honestly because I have no idea. I don't know how high up we are, so we can go ahead and assume that we're in some sort of psychotic orbit. So we're just going to go ahead and dump the outer 2 tanks. Throttle up. And then, fairing time! And you guys ready? You ready for this? You ready? Boom. So much space junk everywhere. Bearings are gone, and now Valentina can do this. And there it is. It is a happy little ship out here in space. Now, I did mention earlier, while we float through here in space, I did mention earlier there is heat, and there is. As you burn an engine, regardless of the direction, as you burn an engine, it will begin to turn red. It'll actually just glow red. And then from there, now this may have changed. I want to go ahead and throw that out there because I haven't seen it in this version. I think it might have actually changed, but heat is a thing. Now you can't see how much heat an object has, but previously it was indicated by red coloring. I do know that when I came out of atmosphere at one point at high speed, my entire pod was red, so that may still be a thing, but it may have just been toned down a little bit. But heat is a thing. I haven't yet had anything explode. So it's not super bad, but you must realize that deadly reentry is now a possibility, is now possibly a thing, because, oh, actually we didn't go up that high. Because when you come back down from something like space at high speeds, you can burn up. Bits of you can burn up. So we're going to go ahead and test this burn up theory, I think, is what we're going to do. And the reason we're going to do that is because I know that this pod is heat shielded. I've brought it down several times. What I don't know is if this pod, if the other objects in this pod's radius are heat shielded. And miss. I always have to point it out. There it is. So we're going to start coming down extremely fast. Now, as I said, there's no heat indicator of oh, well, yep, there she is. There is no deadly reentry mod. Just so you know, this is not a mod. This is not modded KSP. There is no deadly reentry mod. Oop. And I think we need to. Okay. Eek. So you did hear the explosions. I did see that the physical objects still remained on the ship. Oh no. No. It looks like it burned off our. Yeah, it burned off our battery, and it burned off both of our solar panels. So yes, heat now has a thing. It looks like the red is no longer there, which is great. Personally did not like the red. It might be there, but it might be way toned down. But there it is. So now deadly reentry is a thing. You do just have to be careful. But as you saw, we came down from 300,000 meters straight down into Kerbal atmosphere, and our fuel tank and our engines did not explode. However, our more delicate equipment did in fact go poppity pop. And with that, I think it's okay to say that we have survived. And for now, I'd like to go ahead and thank you all very much for joining me and Valentina on this Let's Learn of Kerbal Space Program version 1.0. And you guys have yourself a great time. And I'll see you guys next video.